All right, what's going on, everybody? It's your main man, Caleb Carter, and look, I gotta apologize. I gotta apologize for the audio on this episode because the echo on the mic was just turned up slightly, and that threw off the whole audio on this episode. So I do apologize for that. And I debated, I really did. I debated about whether or not I should even post this episode, but I said for consistency purposes, and I thought it was a pretty decent conversation, I'm going to go ahead and put it up. So I do thank you for sticking around. If you stick around through the whole episode, we appreciate you. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Peace out. Yo. Welcome back to In the Cut with your main man, Caleb Carter. And look, man, before we even get into it, I already know what you're going to say. You said, Caleb, on your last podcast, you said you're going to try to get these out to us every Saturday. And look, I know it ain't Saturday when you're getting this. I know because I'm recording this on a Saturday. And I know I don't edit that quick. But look, this is what I'm going to do. I will need your help.
Baby, help you do what? All I can do is pray for you. Matter of fact, bow your head. Amen.
Help me be consistent. Hold me to that standard, and we're going to try to get these out to you every Saturday. So I don't know what day you're hearing this. Hopefully it's Sunday. Maybe it's Monday. Or whenever you choose to listen to it, that's perfectly fine. But I do appreciate you for being in the cut with your boy. So before we get into everything else, I want to welcome you to the show. For my visual people, the socials are on your screen right now. Do me a favor, go on Instagram for my listeners. Go on Instagram and follow In The Cut on @the_In The Cut Show. Go on Facebook @the In The Cut Show. And then go on Twitter and do the same thing. Follow @the In The Cut Show for all your updates, all your clips. Your boy been posting clips. So, I mean, we kind of been, trying to give you guys some more content. So, we definitely appreciate any support that you have to offer. But now, getting into the episode. I know on last podcast, I was talking about how the sports cycle of recent just hasn't been interesting to me. We got some stuff to talk about. But before we get into any of that, you see it on your screen for my visual people. Rest in peace to Akira Toriyama. For those of you who don't know, Akira Toriyama is the creator of Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. It's a Japanese cartoon anime, if you will. A Japanese animated show, and I'm not the best descriptor of it. I'm a more casual watcher than I am hardcore compared to some others out there, so they could probably do it more justice in description. But what I can say is this. Akira Toriyama was a very formative part of my childhood, right? I mean, just watching Dragon Ball, that was a very, very formative part of me growing up. Matter of fact, I'll never forget being younger. My older cousin Ronald, or Deucey as we called him, he's no longer here with us. But he would give my older brother tapes, VHS tapes of Dragon Ball episodes that we couldn't, find on cable at the time. And he would give them to him and we would watch those together. Right? So that was some of my earliest memories of what Akira Toriyama was present in my home, in my childhood. So definitely rest in peace to Akira Toriyama, because let me tell you, like I say, I'm not the biggest anime fan, but I do partake. So I will say that Dragon Ball isn't my number one anime of all time. That will go to Attack on Titan. But Dragon Ball will never, and hear me on this, never leave my top 5 animes. I mean, it's already been said that Dragon Ball is like the godfather of all anime, right? It set the tone for what anime now has become, and I think that's more than evident. Matter of fact, I used to go out on a limb so far as to say this, and I'll die on this hill, honestly. I think if Dragon Ball Z ended its series, Akira Toriyama just said, we're done production in like I think it was 1994 or something like that when it was first made. If he stopped production of Dragon Ball Z at the Cell Saga, as he called them, he can call them arcs like the rest of anime does. But if he stopped the show at the Cell Saga, I think it would have been easily the greatest anime of all time. I mean, just the drama, the fights, the characters. I was in love with it all. Matter of fact, there was a post on Twitter recently, and it was talking about how one of the characters, Cell, he was going on a rampage. And just to make a long story short, that episode inspired true fear in 10-year-old me back in the day. Matter of fact, in like 16-year-old me. I mean, chills down my spine watching them episodes late at night. But that just goes to show you how good of a storyteller he was, because even to this day, those episodes hold up in form of storytelling. So definitely rest in peace to Akira Toriyama. One thing I'll say very quickly before we get into this next topic is, for my audio listeners, I need some help. My visual listeners, you can help me out too. Help me find some intro music for the podcast. Because if you heard last episode's podcast from last week, you heard some intro music that came after the Martin clip. And I was hoping that could be, some intro music for the podcast. Little did I know that I got copyright striked on YouTube because I used that music. So help me find some music where, I don't have to go through copyright that I can use for the podcast. If I got to pay, as long as it ain't too much, I might just invest in that. This next topic was pretty interesting to me. It says Arch Manning opts out of the NCAA video game. The reason why this was interesting to me, because I saw no benefit or reason for Arch Manning to do it. And before I get into my thoughts, ESPN's Ryan Clark, he had something to say about Arch Manning, and I'm going to let that play for you right now.
Between Arch Manning and a lot of those other kids is based off of what you see, based off of how you've grown up, your goals and dreams are different. His father, Cooper, was extremely talented, an extremely talented wide receiver who had a neck injury, right? But you know that your grandfather, Archie, is one of the greatest players that ever played for the New Orleans Saints. They just had a bad team around him. He was talented. Peyton Manning is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Eli Manning is going to be a Hall of Famer after beating Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl. And so his dreams are different. His cash flow is also different, though. Not only based on how he grew up and who he grew up around, but based on the fact of what he can make in NIL. The picture that stands out to me is at the Sugar Bowl for the college football playoff. Quinn Ewers, who is the starting quarterback, is sitting at his little podium to do media, and everybody's around Arch Manning. And my first thought was, it's in New Orleans, of course those people are. But he's still the backup quarterback. Mm-hmm. That's his life. That was his life at Isidore Newman High School. And the other part of it is, too, Fred Taylor, as great as he wasn't going to change the college football game. If people were going to play that game and want to play with Fred Taylor, it was because Fred Taylor could run a 4.2. Right. They're going to want to play with the Texas Longhorns and put Quinn Ewers on the bench and Arch Manning in the game because of his last name. Mm-hmm. Him being on that game is more important to EA than EA being important to Arch Manning. And that's the decision he made. Yep. And when part of your legacy is, no matter how you say it, Archie Manning, all class. Peyton Manning, all class. Eli Manning, all class. Cooper Manning, all class. You can't forget they orchestrated their way to the New York Giants. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't on the cachet or the entitlement that Eli Manning had built at Ole Miss. It was because of the last name, because of Archie first, because of Peyton. And now you have all of that that's now on Arch Manning. The only thing I would say is this. I wonder how he balances his last name with being one of the guys. Quarterbacks always stick out. Quarterbacks are treated differently. Imagine being the quarterback of the Texas Longhorns and having the last name Manning. All I would ever want to do is fit in. All I would ever want to do is work out on the same racks as the running backs and the wide receivers. All I'd ever want to do is eat at the same table as those people, because immediately on walking in, we all know who you are and everybody around campus knows. And so the only thing I would think could be, if maybe I sit down at the table and we have the conversation, I would tell my son or whoever it is, just maybe you should be a part of the game so everybody knows that you don't believe you're bigger than the other 11,000 or however many players are in the NCAA, especially the ones in your locker room.
So that was ESPN's Ryan Clark and on the Arch Manning situation. And before I get into it, let me say this. That was well articulated by Ryan Clark. I honestly, before I even saw the clip, because I just recently actually listened to the clip as I was getting ready for this podcast. But when it first came to my attention, I was ready to be like, "Oh, this is a dumb take. What is he talking about?" But when I actually listened to it, it was well articulated. You know, I honestly, as an up and coming sports analyst, as you know, whatever, I take a lot from Ryan Clark and his style. So I can appreciate where he was coming from in that video. And I think he made a lot of sense when it comes to the Manning name, right? And what that means for him and the weight that it carries. But I'll say this, because, you know, in defense of Ryan Clark, when I looked up the University of Texas's football roster just to confirm something, the first name that you see is Arch Manning. Mind you, Arch Manning is a backup. He doesn't even start for the University of Texas. That's Quinn Ewers' position. He's the starting quarterback. So that just shows you the star power of that Manning last name. But the reason why I was prepared to initially disagree with Ryan Clark is because this is what Ryan Clark put alongside that video. He, you know, put as his caption for the video in regards to Arch Manning and his decision to opt out of being in the EA NCAA 25 football game. He said this: "Arch Manning is more important to EA Sports than the college football game is to him. That last name carries weight, and this family knows it. This is football's first family. The Mannings were powerful enough to manipulate the top 5 of the 2004 draft seamlessly. For those who don't know, Eli Manning was projected to be drafted in 2004 by the then San Diego Chargers. And then his family, with the help of Peyton Manning being in the league at the time, being a star, and his dad, Archie Manning, being who he was, a star in his own right during his time in the NFL, they helped maneuver that to where Eli Manning was eventually drafted by the New York Giants." But Ryan Clark went on to say this: "Arch's goals are different. He's seen the ultimate success within his family. So what could be an amazing thing for every other backup QB in the nation probably isn't for him. As a father and a former player, I may have advised my son to opt into the game just to be like everyone else. My last name isn't Manning, though." So I get Ryan Clark's point. I really do. Like I say, after listening to the video, I honestly understand it a ton better. But I will say this: I don't see how not opting into the game helps Arch Manning, or opting out of the game helps Arch Manning. It's a game, right? That only pushes your star even further, right? I saw someone in the comment section of that tweet say that, you know, if Arch Manning is depicted as a bad player in the game, then it will reflect negatively on his family. That's not the case. I don't think that's ever been the case in any football simulator ever, right? Because, I mean, let's think about it. Andre Johnson, for example. For those of you who've ever played with the Texans on Madden back when Andre Johnson was playing, you know that Andre Johnson had a terrible speed rating in Madden. Terrible, right? But he was actually good in real life. So I think the same thing can go for Arch Manning. If he's actually good in real life, nobody cares what he's doing in the game. So, and here's the thing even further. Arch Manning right now is a backup. We acting like he necessarily, just because his name carries weight, but he still doesn't have that cachet yet to where it really matters. Right? Because Quinn Ewers is the guy in Texas right now. Quinn Ewers is the guy who beat Bama, during Nick Saban's last season at Alabama. Quinn Ewers is the guy took Texas to the college football playoff and lost to the eventual national champion. No, excuse me. They lost to Washington, who then lost to Michigan, the eventual national champion. But thing is, Arch Manning, he may not even start this year, let alone had Malik Murphy, the number 2 quarterback who eventually transferred from the University of Texas to Duke. Arch Manning may have been the 3rd quarterback on the roster. So I don't see how opting out of NCAA helps Arch Manning in any way. It's not like it's a distraction to him because he's not starting. It doesn't really matter. And then there's the thing about, for anybody who's ever played the NCAA games, you know that you can just create a player, right? You can just put somebody's name on a player, and then call it that. So I don't really understand why Arch Manning opted out of the NCAA game. But one thing I did want to talk about really quickly in regards to the NCAA video game is that it's been released that the NCAA, in regards to NIL, they offered the player $600 and a free copy of the NCAA game. This is 11,000 college players, offering each one of them $600 that they give up their name, image, and likeness for the game specifically, and then a free copy of the game as well. One thing I don't understand is that you got these people talking about how $600 isn't enough. Like, excuse me? They're talking about how, people like Caleb Williams, Arch Manning, Shedeur Sanders, they're already getting millions with NIL, so they need to up the ante when it comes to the NIL for the NCAA game. I'm sorry, but when did millionaires become the barometer for what is and what isn't good pay? Because if you're a college student who's not Arch Manning, who's not Shedeur Sanders, or who's not Caleb Williams, who's not that star player at the D1, mega power, you're not getting millions, let alone thousands of dollars in NIL money. So what being in a video game does for you is exponentially more than what it may do for a Caleb Williams or someone who's making that type of money. So I don't understand the conversation. And here's the thing. We act like $600 is, how can I put this? The $600 going out to the 11,000 players will not only be for this year. So unless the NCAA, which, don't get me wrong, is a $1 billion company, it's not in their best interest to give out a ton more, right? Because this is something that they're most likely going to have to continue doing for years to come. That's enough of that, but that was just something that came to my mind. You got people saying that $600 isn't enough because they're already getting paid millions. Like, as if they should be paid thousands. You're in the game. All right, what's going on, everybody? Hopefully you've been enjoying the episode so far. And if you got this far, man, do I appreciate you for sticking through the audio. But look, I didn't realize how pro-corporation I sounded in this segment. I'm talking about, man, just be grateful. Jeez, I sounded bad. I stick by what I said, but man. All right, I'll let y'all get back to the episode. Love y'all. And maybe that's coming from me who, $600 would help me. I'll tell you that right now. So maybe that's the case. But next, I want to get into another college phenom right now who's about to transition out of college into the professional world. Caitlin Clark. I think we all should know her name by now. College phenom from Iowa. She recently just broke the 3-point record in the NCAA, period, men's or women's. Just passed up Steph Curry and Darius McGee for all-time 3-pointers made. That's Caitlin Clark. Not only did she do that, but she passed up Kelsey Plum a while back to become the all-time women's leader in scoring ever. Not only did she do that, but she recently passed up Pete Maravich to become the all-time leader for Division I history for men and women. And she's only a couple points shy of passing Pearl Monroe to become the all-time leading scorer in college history ever. For those who don't know, Pearl Monroe set that record before women were allowed to be governed by the NCAA in college. I don't think we understand the real weight of that. Women were not governed by the NCAA when Pearl Monroe set the record. And Caitlin Clark is only just a few points shy of breaking that. So that just goes to show you how much history Caitlin Clark has been able and is about to capture. And here's something that I saw that was pretty interesting. It was released by, what's this guy's name? John Orend. A report that Fox executives would like to have kept Caitlin Clark in college. And it reads like this. Clark is such ratings gold, in fact, that Fox executives contemplated reaching out to other networks to see if they could come up with an enticing NIL offer that would convince her to stay in the college ranks for one more season. Alas, talks never materialized. Nobody ever approached Clark and ended before they could get going last week, when the superstar formally announced that she was headed to the WNBA next season. She is the overwhelming favorite to be the top overall pick. I thought that was pretty interesting because, one, it shows that how little even TV executives see the WNBA as, right? Because they see the ratings that Caitlin Clark is doing in college, and they don't think that'll transfer over to the WNBA. But I'll just say this. Not only is Caitlin Clark about to change the WNBA, but let me just talk to you about some other players who might be on their way in the very near future. Angel Reese from LSU, we all know her.
Dog.
Haley Van Lith.
Dog.
She just transferred from Louisville to LSU. We all should know her. You got Juju Watkins out in USC, and there are plenty of other players that I may not know their names, so I'm sorry. But the WNBA is really about to be the place to be for basketball fans, for real basketball fans, that is. Because like I just said in the last episode, the NBA right now is suffering from a lack of stars. And Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Juju Watkins, Haley Van Lith, these people have star power, and they're going to take it to the WNBA. So with the Fox executives, possibly trying to entice Caitlin Clark to stay, I think that the WNBA should have no problem getting viewers, because that is where the real basketball is going to be played. So I honestly can't wait to see, all the things that come about it. Because let's think about this. Not only is you have this new crop of talent coming to the W, but you already have these stars in the WNBA right now, right? I mean, let's just think about Sabrina Ionescu.
Dog.
During the NBA All-Star game, she went toe-to-toe with Steph Curry from the men's three-point line and nearly beat him in a three-point shooting contest. So that just goes to show you the type of talent that the WNBA has to offer. We just have to support it, simply. We just got to put our eyes over there and support it. I want to get into this last thing. Another segment of Caleb's Pet Peeves. And this one is going to be pretty short. But something that came to mind as I was on my way to work, because like I said, I'm working at the Houston Rodeo right now, so it's a ton of people. Parking is horrible, so we got to take a shuttle over to parking. Sometimes I ride the metro train. So basically, I'm among a lot of people a lot of the time, right? I'm in public spaces pretty often. I take public transportation pretty often. And what that has done is reinforce something that has already been an annoyance to me. And that's when people play music out loud, right? Either on their phone, they got it to their ear, right? But it's on full blast, so not only they can hear it, but everybody around them can hear it. Or you got the guy who got a backpack and it's a speaker playing music. We don't want to hear that. And it's always like the most distortion of songs, right? It reminds me of those people. My mom is guilty of this, and I love my mom. But, they'll be watching a clip, and you're in the car, and they'll be playing the clip just as loud as possible. It's like, man, nobody else wants to hear what you're hearing. So could you turn the volume down, get you some headphones or something? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But, hey, man. Definitely want to, again, thank you guys for being in the cut with your main man, Caleb Carter. I think this time really flew by. But stay tuned. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. The YouTube channel is Caleb Carter TV. I need to make that for the next episode. But Caleb Carter TV is the YouTube channel where you can find this information. Find the podcast. So, hey, man, we appreciate y'all for listening. Be blessed. Be safe. Peace out.